The film commences in New York City, introducing a multitude of characters concurrently. The first character is a security guard by the name of Mohammed, who is emotionally moved by a heartfelt homemade greeting card. Another key figure is the charismatic comedian George, who is preparing for an upcoming event while effortlessly refining his jokes. Following George is a poised television reporter named Maureen and her fiancé Don, who are currently enjoying private moments in their opulent mansion. Among the cast of characters, we also have a beautiful pregnant woman named Celine, an elderly widow named Jane, and an overweight individual named Martin. Last but not least, we encounter an esteemed businessman named Henry Barton and his spoiled 10-year-old granddaughter Madeline. All of them are en route to a 52-story skyscraper, owned by none other than Henry himself. In the subsequent scene, all these characters arrive at Henry's skyscraper to attend an event situated on the uppermost floor of the building. One by one, they enter the same elevator after passing through security checks. George exhibits signs of claustrophobia, and he requests the security guard not to overload the elevator. Despite this, the security guard proceeds to fill the elevator with all 9 individuals, which is the maximum capacity. As the elevator ascends, George becomes increasingly agitated, his attention fixated on the rising floor numbers. In an attempt to comfort George, Martin, who has been using the elevator for 6 years without incident, reassures him. To exacerbate George's distress, the mischievous Madeline impulsively presses the emergency stop button, causing the elevator to come to an abrupt halt. As a result, George loses his composure and reprimands the young girl. Henry steps in to defend his granddaughter, contending that it was an accident, though George is convinced that she did it intentionally. Fortunately, before tensions escalate further, Mohammed successfully manages to calm everyone down. He then advises Henry to press the restart button, which Henry obliges. To their collective astonishment, however, the elevator remains motionless. In a state of panic, Henry presses the button for the lobby floor, resulting in a slight descent before another halt. George's claustrophobia escalates into full-blown panic, leading him to scold Madeline, albeit using strong language. This enrages Henry, who responds by dismissing George from his comedian role, though George's immediate concern is merely to exit the elevator. When the elevator fails to respond, Henry utilizes the intercom button to notify security about the situation. Upon learning of the issue, security promises to dispatch a maintenance crew. While awaiting assistance, the group initiates conversations, forming connections among themselves. Henry discloses his impending retirement plans, expressing his desire to find a suitable successor promptly. After some time, the pregnant Celine urgently requires the use of a restroom. Unable to wait any longer, she opts to use her bag as an improvised toilet. The other individuals avert their gazes, while Martin generously employs his coat to afford her some privacy. In the midst of this, Madeline makes an impolite comment upon observing the situation, but her grandfather swiftly silences her. The conversation shifts to Jane, who proceeds to share her heartbreaking story with the group. She reveals the tragic loss of her son in Iraq the previous year and the unthinkable act committed by her husband following a significant financial setback. Her husband had invested in shares from Henry's company, which rapidly depreciated in value. Jane tearfully ascribes her loss to Henry, albeit indirectly. In response, Henry acknowledges that life can be unfair at times, emphasizing the importance of living each day as if it were the last. He inquires about Jane's presence in the elevator, but before she can respond, Jane experiences respiratory distress, seemingly suffering a heart attack. She gradually collapses to the floor, revealing in her final breath that she is in possession of a bomb, which clarifies her intention to seek retribution for her husband. This revelation sends everyone into a state of panic, and Martin hastily dials 911 to report the ongoing crisis. Jane ultimately passes away, and Mohammed, who had previously worked as a medic, confirms her death. Subsequent to this, reporter Maureen begins to document and live-stream the unfolding events using her phone. Henry once again attempts to contact security through the elevator's communication system, but he is met with impatience. Meanwhile, the trapped individuals engage in a heated debate about who should step forward to inspect Jane's body for the presence of a bomb. After deliberating, Celine volunteers for the task. Initially, she cautiously examines Jane's bag, but discovers only a wallet, eliciting a collective sigh of relief. However, they find a news clipping from Jane's purse that details her husband's tragic death. Celine then proceeds to examine Jane's body, and this time, she discovers something within her stomach. Upon unfastening her clothing, she unveils the bomb securely fastened around her waist with a bike lock. This revelation instills fear in everyone, momentarily silencing the group. In the meantime, the reporter, Maureen, who has been documenting the situation, transfers the footage to her television station. After an extended period without any assistance, the trapped group attempts to find an alternative means of escape from the elevator. Don takes the initiative by ascending to the ceiling and attempting to break through a panel in search of an escape hatch. Unfortunately, he discovers only the lights in the ceiling, bringing disappointment to their efforts. Following these failed attempts, Celine lights a cigarette in an effort to calm her nerves, but Don discourages her from smoking, citing potential harm to her unborn child. In response, Celine reacts with a surge of anger, questioning whether Don is now attempting to be a responsible father. This outburst captures Maureen's attention, and she suspects that her fiancé had an affair with Celine. When she confronts Don about it, he hesitantly confirms that he and Celine indeed had an affair in the past. He also acknowledges the possibility of being the father of Celine's unborn child, leaving Maureen in a state of emotional turmoil. In the outside world, the video footage recorded by Maureen becomes breaking news nationwide. The bomb maker, responsible for crafting the explosive device for Jane, witnesses the broadcast and appears visibly worried and guilt-ridden. Meanwhile, the trapped group forcibly opens the elevator door to explore any potential escape route. Upon doing so, they spot a small opening above them, and Don attempts to climb out. His efforts prove futile as the opening is too small. He resorts to using Jane's cane to extend his reach towards the elevator button outside. Just as he is about to reach the button, Madeline rapidly presses multiple buttons on the control panel from inside, inadvertently causing the elevator's brakes to disengage, sending it plummeting several floors. The violent descent results in Don losing his arm, and the cabin is engulfed in darkness. Once power is restored, a gruesome sight becomes evident. Don has lost his arm, and Henry has suffered a deep wound to his forehead. Muhammad acts swiftly, using a necktie as a makeshift tourniquet to stem the blood loss from Don's severed arm. Elsewhere, the bomb's creator grapples with guilt for endangering the lives of the 8 people. Consequently, he contacts media reporters to confess his wrongdoing. When questioned by the press, he reveals his motivations for creating the bomb for Jane, including a deep personal connection, as her deceased son was a close friend of his. He explains that he felt indebted to their family and discloses that the bomb contains highly lethal explosive components, estimating it is set to detonate within the next 10 minutes. The trapped group watches this confession on Martin's mobile phone, causing them to lose hope of survival. George suggests opening the door one more time, considering the possibility that the recent movement of the elevator may have created an opening behind it. The group supports his idea, and, with united effort, they manage to pry the door open. To their dismay, they discover no pathway beyond the door. Undeterred, George contemplates opening the elevator once more, hoping there may be enough space to dispose of the bomb down the shaft, averting potential catastrophe. However, the situation is not as straightforward as it appears, as the bomb is secured to Jane's body by a chain. George then asks if anyone has anything sharp, to which Muhammad provides a small knife. Given that the metal chain cannot be cut, the group considers dismembering Jane's body to separate her from the bomb as a last resort. With unanimous agreement, they prepare to carry out this grim task. However, when the moment comes to act, George finds himself unable to summon the courage for such a gruesome undertaking. Witnessing his hesitation, Henry steps forward, taking on the responsibility due to his past experience in animal butchery. After taking a deep breath, he begins the dissection of Jane's body. As Henry proceeds, he reaches her abdominal region but requires assistance in removing her organs. Muhammad and George assist with this grisly operation. When they are still unable to cut through her spine, they opt to snap it. The group divides their efforts and twists the body, pulling from opposite ends. In the midst of this, George perceives Henry as responsible for the situation and demands that he commit to providing $1 million to each survivor if they escape. Surprisingly, Henry agrees to George's terms. At that moment, a security guard communicates through the intercom, delivering long-awaited news that the rescue and bomb squads have finally arrived. He assures the group that the team will extract them shortly. Within moments, the rescue team lowers the elevator and opens the door, creating a narrow passage for the trapped group to exit. They begin pulling each person out one by one. Only Martin remains, realizing the opening is too small for him to fit through. Desperate to save Martin, George urgently orders the rescue team to lower the elevator to another floor. Regrettably, they close the elevator door, leaving Martin trapped inside with Jane's lifeless body. Overwhelmed with despair, Martin weeps uncontrollably, knowing his imminent fate. However, in his final moments, he regains his composure and recognizes himself as the hero who helped ensure everyone's survival. With this realization, he awaits the inevitable, and the bomb detonates within seconds. Following this tragic event, Don is swiftly transported to the hospital, while George and Mohammed sit together, their expressions reflecting a blend of sorrow and relief. As Henry passes by, George reminds him of the promised $1 million for each survivor, but Henry dismisses the notion. George and Mohammed engage in a brief conversation, pondering the uncertain path ahead in life. Shortly thereafter, a news reporter approaches George, inquiring about how he managed to remain brave throughout the ordeal. George chooses to keep the truth hidden, claiming that he needed to stay composed for the well-being of everyone involved. He then receives a call from his wife, who remains unaware of the entire incident, reminding him to pick up groceries on his way home. George opts not to disclose any details and simply agrees before departing. If you found this recap helpful, please subscribe for more content, turn on notifications, and leave a like to support the channel. Thank you for watching.